Good morning, family. Welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Saturday, October 25th, 2008. And today we're reading Genesis chapter 26, which is, there's really a lot in that chapter, so I do encourage you, as always, to read through the chapter for yourself and see what you get out of this chapter, and you can add it to our blog, or you can make comments on what I'm going to speak about. But this chapter is really interesting, and it actually showed to me, as reading it, how history repeats itself. Because we're talking about Isaac in this chapter, and there's a famine in the land, and the Lord speaks to him and tells him that he doesn't want him to go into Egypt, and there's certain events that he goes through. And if you look back a few chapters ago when we were reading with Abraham, he went through a famine in the land, and that time he actually went into Egypt, but there were some events that happened which is almost identical to Isaac. And it's really funny how you can see that different things happen, and history will repeat itself. So even though I may go through stuff in this lifetime, and grandma and grandpa may have gone through stuff in their lifetime, and it just repeats itself down the line, and you can handle it. And we'll see actually as I'm going through this Lesson for Life how they handle it, because like I said, Isaac had the famine, and the Lord spoke to him and said, I don't want you to go into Egypt. I'm going to show you the land that you to go into. And he took him into another land, but what was the key thing was that Isaac listened to the word of the Lord, and he followed the command of the Lord. And you'll see that further on that Isaac grew and became great, and actually says very great. So no matter what, the key thing for you to do is to follow the commandment of the Lord, and to follow the will of the Lord, and you can still prosper even though there's a famine, or even though everything else might be crumbling around, and even the world or whatever. As long as you follow the will of the Lord, you still can prosper in any time. And that was the key thing that was, similar between both situations, between Isaac and Abraham. That even though one went into Egypt and the other one was led not to go into Egypt, you can still prosper as long as you follow the will of the Lord. So that's the key element, or the key thing that you need to remember. No matter what, as you experience things in your life, you don't necessarily have to go down the same path that I go down. But as long as you're following the will of the Lord for your life, then you can be prosperous and you can be successful. And I think that's the lesson. That's one of the lessons that we can get out of this chapter. I've gotten out of it. And another thing too is just how Abraham, his obedience and it says here in the chapter that the Lord said because of Abraham's obedience to his commandments, his laws, his statutes, then he kind of reaffirms his covenant, or his promise to Isaac that he's going to multiply him, and he won't be able to count his seeds, and so forth. So this is the second lesson I want us to think about in this chapter. It's just how the father's obedience, or the parents' obedience, can actually set up for their children's success. And I believe we're going to see this further and further, more and more throughout the Word of God as we continue to read through the chapters, that how the parents can really set up their children for success by being obedient to the Lord. So now you have to consider in your own life that as you live, whether you can set your children up for successes or for failures if you're obedient or disobedient. So just keep that in your mind as you live in your life, that it's not just all about you, but it's actually how your obedience to the Lord can actually help your children down the road. And I have no doubt that as I live today, and I could look around and see many blessings, that a lot of things came about simply because not by me doing anything necessarily, but because of the obedience of my parents. And then now I'm blessed with certain things. So I keep that in mind even as I'm going throughout my days, and what I'm doing, that I want to set things up for you guys in the right way. So I'm obedient to the Lord and doing things that the Lord wants me to do, just so I can, not for myself, but so I can set you guys up. So now as you're living your life, you also have to do the same thing. And anyone else, actually, you just realize that your life is not just all about you, but you're actually living your life, and your obedience or your disobedience is going to affect your children down the road. So that's another important lesson I believe that we can get out of this chapter, and something that we can take from here and use to really encourage us throughout the day and motivate us to do right and to do really what we know we should do, because we're not just doing it for ourselves, but we're actually doing it for our children and our future generations. And actually, if you think about it, then it'll just continue to grow and grow. And as you continue to go down the generation, there's just be more blessings piling up, because obedience is just going to keep going and going and going. So that's another, like I said, important thing that I got out of this chapter, and I know we're going to see it further and further, more and more as we read throughout the rest of the Word. So with that said, that's it for today's Lesson for Life. Create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we will talk again tomorrow.